first in-person meeting since recovering from COVID. And so the picture that emerged of Prime Minister Trudeau and the Queen in March garnered more attention than usual, in part because it was her first in-person meeting, and there were just people who were just so pleased to see that she was either looking like herself or looking like she had, recovered enough to the point of having this meeting. And also in the background of that photo were flowers in blue and yellow, interpreted as a nod to Ukraine and the situation there. So that stood out. The Prime Minister today saying that the Queen was one of his favorite people in the world, and he will miss her so. And again, speaking, it was a very personal touch that we could hear from him, the tone of his voice as he delivered that. And he talked about how her steady grace and resolve brought comfort and strength to us all in a complicated world and a complicated time. So that was the message from the Prime Minister today. We're also, you mentioned the commemorative events happening or what will take place in Ottawa. We are getting some details from the City of Ottawa, which has released the plans for the coming days. We have not had an official date, of course, yet for a funeral or what happens there. But we know, and as you've heard from Crystal and others, that the day of the funeral is known as Operation London Bridge, and that is the term here in Canada as well. And I can tell you a couple of things that will be happening on that day on Operation London Bridge here in Ottawa. There will be a gun salute. There will be a parade that ends at the Christchurch Cathedral for an interfaith memorial service, and there will also be a fly past over Parliament Hill. And as you know, the flags at the Peace Tower and flags at all federal buildings will be lowered, or have been already lowered, and will stay that way until the sunset on the day of the funeral. And I think I'm hearing in my ear that we may have some tape for you, if that's correct, from former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. So I'll let us listen in to see what he had to say just a few minutes ago.
There must be millions and millions of people around the globe who are very sad at this moment. And she had a great life, and it was always a lot of dignity, and she was an extremely pleasant person in private. I had the privilege to meet her the first time in 1967, at the time of the Centennial of Canada, and I had to accompany her at some official function, and she was always very nice. She was always telling me, she was always speaking to my wife and I in French, because it was a good occasion for her to practice her French. It was quite good. And it was the same thing for the Queen Mother too. She deserved, the respect she has, and she deserved the need, the rest that she was sick, and probably life had been a bit difficult in the last month. So God bless her.
I think one of the things that stands out to me from hearing the words of former Prime Minister Chrétien, he talks about how the Queen made an effort to speak to him in French. And when you see the condolences pouring in from other former Prime Ministers and leaders, they all have some personal story or anecdote about how the Queen connected with each of them individually. And that's a common thread here about her ability to connect with people, find the humanity, show the personality, which is what so many people are remembering tonight.
Our Abigail Beeman in Ottawa. Thank you, Abigail. We're back with Patricia Trouble, our royal expert who's joining us. You were saying there, just while we were listening to the clip from Jean Chrétien, that there was a remarkable relationship between Mr. and Mrs. Chrétien and between the Queen and Prince Philip.
So they've known each other for so long. I mean, there were the famous instances when he was Justice Minister and they were patriating the Constitution, and he was going back and forth to Britain all the time. And there was an infamous time when he says he was so tired. He said to a press conference that, we were talking and she speaks perfect English. And then he realized what he said. He said, she speaks perfect French. And they've known each other for so long. And she knows how much he did. And so she made him in 2009 a member of the Order of Merit. This is an order that only she gives. It is not political. And some people who've had the Order of Merit have been, I think, Nelson Mandela, some of the top scientists of the world. He was only the first Canadian ever to be given this. So that just shows you. And he's also been instrumental in some of the scholarship programs and things like that. I think he was one of the trustees for the Diamond Jubilee Foundation that was set up to honor for her. And that was to do a lot of scholarships for young people in the Commonwealth. So.
Incredible. Well, I know I had the opportunity to interview former Prime Minister Chrétien, and he was saying his empathy for the Queen as well. As we were speaking to before, he'd lost his wife, Eileen, who was very, very close to Eileen, and she'd lost Prince Philip. And you could see the tears in his eyes. He really felt that in a very personal way. We just have about a minute left before we go to a very in-depth obituary of the Queen so that we can remember her. But I wanted to leave off on the note of Balmoral Palace and the fact that she passed there. What did Balmoral Palace mean to the Queen?
Balmoral in Scotland was her retreat. She went there every year, 2 months, every summer. It's where Philip proposed to her in the summer of 1946 after the war.
Incredible.
She always loved it. She always made sure her family went up. She loved having all her family up there for as long as they could stay. And for her, it was simply just home. She was always working. She was always the Queen, always the head of state. But there she could just go away, climb up the hills. It didn't matter what the weather was. And she could just get away from everything.
And she enjoyed hunting and shooting and horseback riding a great deal up there?
She did everything. And apparently even towards the end, she was still out with her dogs, walking her dogs.
Her
with
corgis?
ladies away, with...
I love the...
I know, with corgis. So, and with a lady in waiting and somebody to help her, just to make sure she wasn't going to fall. But she was out and about all the time. And that's what, makes this, such a sudden thing. Because she was enjoying herself so much up there.
Well, and an incredible lover of nature, lover of the country that she represented and the Commonwealth. And I'm sure that so many are going to miss her, but she would have wanted her family there, and they were there, and she was at such a special place. I'm Mercedes Stephenson, and our global news coverage of the death of the Queen continues.
In an ever-changing world, she was a rock of stability. Queen Elizabeth II famously said she had to be seen to be believed. And over 7 decades, with each passing milestone, thousands turned out to see Britain's oldest, longest reigning, and most beloved monarch.
She's probably the most famous woman in the world, probably the most admired woman in the world.
I mean, reigns span X number of years, and she accepts it and realises that this is phenomenal.
This is the first monarch who's reigned through a modern media age, who's reigned through so much social change, from the Cold War through the jet age, the space age, the digital age, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. I mean, you name it, she has seen pretty much the 20th century at first hand.
Her reign was as long as it was unexpected. Born Elizabeth Alexandra Mary on April 21st, 1926, she was still a child when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne. Suddenly, Elizabeth's father was king, and she was next in line. The young princess made this promise.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
She made that speech when she was 21, saying that however long her life was, she would devote it to her country and to the Commonwealth, and she stuck to it, and I think that's why people admire her, because she really has stuck to her word.
That devotion to duty would be her hallmark. She was a teenager when Europe went to war and begged her father to let her help, first with her wartime radio broadcasts.
Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister, Margaret Rose, and I feel so much for you.
And later, joining the services as a driver and mechanic. During the war, she had a chance encounter with her distant cousin, Philip. He was serving with the British Royal Navy in the Mediterranean and Pacific. They exchanged letters for 7 years.
As onto the famous balcony came the bride and bridegroom.
Their wedding in Westminster Abbey in 1947 was broadcast on BBC Radio to 200 million people around the world. The newlyweds never expected Princess Elizabeth was about to become queen. But when Elizabeth's father died from a heart attack, the 25-year-old was thrust onto the throne.
For the Queen, it must have been devastating. She was out in Kenya, no expectation that this news would arrive, and she knew everything would change, her life, her family, and it would be duty from now on.
Her coronation was one of the first televised public events. The young queen quickly showed a knack for protecting tradition while embracing change.
I very much hope that this new medium will make my Christmas message more personal and direct.
Her first televised Christmas message in 1957 became an annual tradition. Half a century later, she was still at it, pushing the boundaries with her first tweet. Even the occasional photobomb. But the rise of technology also meant the world was shrinking, and so too was her empire. More than 25 countries declared independence during her reign. Others loosened their ties, like Canada, signing its constitution in 1982. Her reign spanned 12 Canadian prime ministers, from Pierre Trudeau's famous pirouette to Canada's second Prime Minister Trudeau.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
Her Majesty made 22 trips to Canada, more than any other country.
This country felt like a home, away from home.
Always taking time to meet and greet her royal subjects.
It was just awesome to look at her. Cool, once-in-a-lifetime chance.
Many credit the Queen's personal popularity for the monarchy's survival. But one of her lowest points came during the mid-90s, after 3 of her children divorced and a fire gutted her Windsor Castle home.
It has turned out to be an annus horribilis.
After the death of Princess Diana, the Queen at first failed to join the public outpouring of grief. But she soon bowed to public pressure, delivering a heartfelt TV address and emerging the elder stateswoman.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart.
And before long, that grandmother became a great-grandmother. The palace released this image of the Queen and Philip with 7 of their great-grandchildren. The photo was taken in 2018 before the arrivals of Archie and Lilibet, named after Queen Elizabeth. Their parents, Prince Harry and Meghan, resigned their royal duties in February 2020, delivering a shock to the palace. And just 2 months later, the royal family lost another member. Prince Philip died peacefully at Windsor Castle at the age of 99. At his funeral, a scaled-down affair in the COVID-19 pandemic, the Queen sat alone in the pew, a widow after 73 years of marriage. But within days of her husband's death, Her Majesty was back to work, holding virtual royal audiences due to the pandemic, and as always, keeping calm and carrying on. One of the last times the family appeared all together was to mark her Platinum Jubilee, celebrating 70 years on the throne. The 96-year-old was forced to miss some of the party due to health issues. And despite scandals surrounding some of her children, grandchildren, even the British Prime Minister, the Queen, as ever, seemed to rise above, making a surprise appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace.
To have held the country and the institution together all these years, to be running a hereditary institution that's as strong today as it was when she took over, I mean, that's really what the best she could have hoped for, and she's done that.
There by her side, 3 generations of future kings, all heirs to the British throne. Her legacy will endure, but for a woman who steered the royal family through 3/4 of a century, it's hard to imagine this place without her. Jeff Semple, Global News, London.
A momentous event in modern history unfolding tonight with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, our longest reigning monarch, passing away today at the age of 96. Full coverage of her life, times, and her impact starts right now. You are watching a special edition of Global News. This is a live look outside of Buckingham Palace tonight. Despite the late hour in the United Kingdom, people continue to gather and mourn the loss of Queen Elizabeth II, a scene that will continue for days to come. Thank you for joining us. Millions of people across the country, the Commonwealth, and all around the world marking the passing of Queen Elizabeth II tonight. We have full coverage of her life and her death straight ahead. First, a quick recap of how we got here. Most of us woke to the news of the Queen under medical supervision at her estate in Balmoral, Scotland. Speculation quickly grew over her condition. Her children rushed to be at her side. Then, just hours later, at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the official announcement from Buckingham Palace. The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The second Elizabethan age officially coming to an end. And with that, her eldest son will be known as King Charles III. The reign of Queen Elizabeth lasted 70 years, longer than any other British monarch. Generations of people have known no other Queen of England. But as mentioned, there is a new monarch tonight. Prince Charles became king the moment his mother died. Jeff Semple looks back on the Queen's lasting legacy.
In an ever-changing world, she was a rock of stability. Queen Elizabeth II famously said she had to be seen to be believed. And over 7 decades, with each passing milestone, thousands turned out to see Britain's oldest, longest reigning, and most beloved monarch.
She's probably the most famous woman in the world, probably the most admired woman in the world.
Her reign was as long as it was unexpected. Born Elizabeth Alexandra Mary on April 21st, 1926, she was still a child when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne. Suddenly, Elizabeth's father was king, and she was next in line. The young princess made this promise.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
That devotion to duty would be her hallmark. She was a teenager when Europe went to war and begged her father to let her help, first with her wartime radio broadcasts.
Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister, Margaret Rose, and I feel so much for you.
And later, joining the services as a driver and mechanic. During the war, she had a chance encounter with her distant cousin, Philip. He was serving with the British Royal Navy in the Mediterranean and Pacific. They exchanged letters for 7 years.
As onto the famous balcony came the bride and bridegroom.
Their wedding in Westminster Abbey in 1947 was broadcast on BBC Radio to 200 million people around the world. The newlyweds never expected Princess Elizabeth was about to become queen. But when Elizabeth's father died from a heart attack, the 25-year-old was thrust onto the throne. Her coronation was one of the first televised public events. The young queen quickly showed a knack for protecting tradition while embracing change.
I very much hope that this new medium will make my Christmas message more personal and direct.
But the rise of technology also meant the world was shrinking, and so too was her empire. More than 25 countries declared independence during her reign. Others loosened their ties, like Canada, signing its constitution in 1982. Her reign spanned 12 Canadian prime ministers, from Pierre Trudeau's famous pirouette to Canada's second Prime Minister Trudeau.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
Her Majesty made 22 trips to Canada, more than any other country.
This country felt like a home, away from home.
Many credit the Queen's personal popularity for the monarchy's survival, but at times she struggled to hold the family together. 3 of her children divorced. And after the death of Princess Diana in 1997, the Queen faced criticism for failing to join the public outpouring of grief. In February 2020, Diana's youngest son, Prince Harry, and his wife Meghan retired from royal duties, dealing a blow to the palace. And a couple of months later, the royal family lost another member. Prince Philip died peacefully at Windsor Castle at the age of 99. At his funeral, a scaled-down affair in the COVID-19 pandemic, the Queen sat alone in the pew, a widow after 73 years of marriage. But within days of her husband's death, Her Majesty was back to work, holding virtual royal audiences due to the pandemic, and as always, keeping calm and carrying on. One of the last times the family appeared all together was to mark her Platinum Jubilee, celebrating 70 years on the throne. The 96-year-old was forced to miss some of the party due to health issues. And despite scandals surrounding some of her children, grandchildren, even the British Prime Minister, the Queen, as ever, seemed to rise above, making a surprise appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. There by her side, 3 generations of future kings, all heirs to the British throne. Her legacy will endure, but for a woman who steered the royal family through 3/4 of a century, it's hard to imagine this place without her. Jeff Semple, Global News, London.
With the passing of the Queen comes a lot of procedural changes. Let's go live to our Colin DeMello, who has more details on that front for us. Colin.
There are many tributes here in the front lawn of the Ontario Legislature, Alan, to mark the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. The flags have been lowered. There will be a book of condolence. Her portrait will be shrouded in a black veil. And inside the legislature, there was a moment of silence to mark the passing of a monarch. A mournful moment at Queen's Park, where every piece of law passed is done so in the name of Queen Elizabeth.
Mr. Speaker, it is my sad duty to inform the House that Her Majesty the Queen has died. Long live the King.
The announcement inside the legislature came as the flags outside of it were lowered, a recognition of a Commonwealth now in mourning.
Throughout her historic reign, she taught us the true meaning of selfless service and was respected and admired for her sense of duty and commitment to charity. After assuming the throne in 1952, Her Majesty led the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth through decades of changes, reigning as the longest-serving monarch in the history of our nation.
The flags will remain lowered until the evening of the Queen's funeral. The lobby of the Ontario Legislature will hold a book of condolence, and the Queen's official portrait will be shrouded in black ribbon. It will remain that way until a new portrait of King Charles III is received. It was on these grounds in 2010 that Queen Elizabeth paid a visit, walking the halls of Queen's Park with then Lieutenant Governor David Onley and then Premier Dalton McGuinty, and unveiling a plaque on the south lawn of the legislature as well. It was during that trip that some Ontario MPPs had the rare chance to meet a monarch.
She was extremely proper. We followed very strict protocol when we were being introduced. I practiced how to curtsy.
Ontario's Lieutenant Governor also had an audience with the Queen shortly after her appointment.
I, of course, remember her grace, her warmth, her charm, but I remember being told, and it was true, that she would know much about my jurisdiction that maybe I didn't even know.
So perhaps it is fitting that Elizabeth Dowdeswell played a role in the Queen's legacy. The Ford government had just passed a new law and needed royal assent, which took place moments before news of the Queen's passing.
It's actually amazing that you mentioned that. I was scheduled for royal consent at 1:30, and at that time we had not heard word. I did come in, I nodded assent, but before I signed, I reminded those few people who were here of what a somber day this was, and while we didn't know the outcome, how important a moment it was.
An historical moment, the final law passed in Queen Elizabeth's name. And so members of provincial parliament will be returning here to Queen's Park next Wednesday to hold solemn tributes and say a final farewell to the Queen. Alan.
Colin, thank you so much. Now, the news of the Queen's passing is being felt all across the city. Karen Lieberman is live outside the Queen and Beaver pub with more on the reaction to her passing. Karen.
And Alan, the reason we're coming to you from this British pub in particular is that it was named in honor of Queen Elizabeth II. And we had a chance to speak with the owner. You'll hear from him later in our show. And he told us that for him, Queen Elizabeth II is iconic, that she's a role model for all women. And that really is some of what we heard on the streets of Toronto today. As we've heard, Queen Elizabeth II visited this country 22 times. And so it's easy to find people in the streets who have a memory, have seen coverage of the Queen in our country on television, attended some of the events that she's been to here. And we had a chance as well to talk today with Ontario's former Lieutenant Governor David Onley, who also met the Queen on 4 separate occasions. And he took us on a stroll down memory lane, specifically remembering one rather funny occasion when he and his wife met the Queen at Buckingham Palace.
It turns out that the night before was the federal election in Canada where Stephen Harper won. And the Queen said, and I remember the words so clearly, she said, "Now I understand you have an election coming up." And I just went through my mind, oh, she has not been briefed that the election was the night before, therefore she doesn't know the results. But how do you tell the Queen that she was wrong, that the election has already occurred? I just thought, well, you don't. So I just said, well, yes, Your Majesty. In fact, it was last night and I have the results. And she said, oh, what are they? So I proceeded to tell her that the Conservatives had won and the Liberals had lost. And she looked quizzically and she said, oh my, that's an interesting result. Again, I just thought the best thing was not to tell Her Majesty she was wrong, to say, yes, Your Majesty. In fact, I have the results. So that's a memory I will always take with me.
Always gracious. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone in this city today without a memory to share, and also without condolences to pass on, of course, to the royal family. We'll have more memories and comments coming up later on. Alan.
Thank you, Karen. Now, the Queen's passing has sent people to places of worship in the city, thinking of not only the Queen, but the royal family she leaves behind. That is where our Sean O'Shea is at the Cathedral Church of St. James along King Street East. Sean.
So head of the Anglican Church, and so a very important person to the church here. This church will be having a memorial service for her in the days ahead. Date to be announced. There's protocol to be addressed at a meeting tomorrow. But just behind me inside right now, the choir is practicing. They're practicing for that memorial. Earlier today, we came to the grounds here and we spoke to many people who had shown up and who were thinking about and talking about the death of Queen Elizabeth, and for many people feeling very strongly about it. Here's what a couple of people had to say.
She lived an amazing life. At a very young age, she became queen, never faltered from her duty, and I always admired her greatly, and I think it's the end of an era, a dynasty, and I wish Charles well as the new king, and I will be very sorry not to have Queen Elizabeth in my life anymore.
I remember when she was crowned. I was 8 years old when she became queen. And I remember saying to my dad, it was such a great day, I got a day off school. And my dad, I can't wait till the next queen is crowned. And my dad said, it's going to be a king and you'll be an old woman. My father was a very cheerful man.
And one of the people who strolled over to have a conversation with me was a friend of mine and a neighbor of mine, John Stewart, who works in the financial services industry here and spent a career in the Canadian Reserves. He had a lot of memories. He considered this a very sad day, but he also talked to me about the great sense of humor that Her Majesty had.
I met her in Buckingham Palace in 1981, and she was really charming. I really enjoyed her, and we had a nice conversation. Then again in Toronto, a few years later, and I have a picture of her in the den. I'm in the background of the picture, and she turned around and said to everybody, "Smile, just pretend you have shares in Kodak," you know. So she had a sense of humor. She was a lovely person, and oddly enough, I wound up organizing a brooch for her Diamond Jubilee because she was Captain General of the Royal Canadian Artillery. So we gave her that as a present, and I organized that, and she enjoyed the brooch very much.
So many memories, so many stories from so many people. As we've heard earlier, the Queen paid 22 visits to Canada. She came to St. James 3 times. The most recent was in 2010 in her mid-80s. Hundreds of people were on the street, on King Street, on Church, between Church and Jarvis, lined up 20 deep at some points to be able to catch a glimpse, to wave at the Queen and hopefully have her wave back. So many memories, and this church, such an important part of people's memories of the Queen on this day of her passing. Alan, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sean. Now, as the world and Toronto reacts to the passing of the Queen, there are many questions about what happens next, both in England and also here in Canada. We are joined now by our royal expert, Patricia Treble. Appreciate you being with us. We understand that Charles III may have an address tomorrow, but give me a sense in the next week or so what we are going to see.
It's called London Bridge. It's a detailed kind of synopsis on what's happening. The Queen knew, she approved, and regularly updated it. So what we're going to really have tomorrow is likely Charles will address the Commonwealth. And so it's likely going to be in the evening British time, so probably early afternoon our time. And it'll be his first time to really talk about his mother, talk about the change. And his first time we'll see him as monarch. And at the same time, according to the schedule, though it might not happen, he's supposed to have a meeting with the Prime Minister. Now, the Queen just had a meeting with the Prime Minister 2 days ago in Scotland. Whether the Prime Minister wants to go all the way back up to Scotland again to have that meeting, I don't know, or whether they'll wait for him to come down to London. And the other thing he's supposed to be doing, he's supposed to be meeting with the Earl Marshal. Earl Marshal is in charge, this is a ceremonial role. He's in charge of all large ceremonial events, such as funerals of a monarch, such as the coronations and stuff like that. Interesting, he's the Duke of Norfolk, who's the most senior peer of the land. He's a Catholic, and so he's in charge of the head of the Anglican Church's funeral. So that's really tomorrow. And what also is going to happen is at some point he's going to come down into London. There'll be a meeting of what's called the Accession Council. So this is the Privy Council meeting, but they're the Accession Council. He has to swear his oath. And there'll also be the proclamations. So once he's done the oath, proclamations go out to all the various parts of Britain, again, ancient tradition, and they stand in the middle of the street and they utter the proclamation that we have a new king and this is his name and everyone should respect him. And it's, of course, of an era when nobody had, cell phones and things like that. And so that's going to happen. And then also at the same time, he's introducing himself to Britain and to the Commonwealth. We're going to have the Queen's coffin slowly moving down from Scotland. They have all the arrangements for, depending on where she died, if she died at Sandringham, if she died at Windsor, everything. And for Balmoral, they said the most difficult because it is complicated. She's in the Highlands of Scotland. And so they're going to have to come down probably to Edinburgh. She may stay in Edinburgh. The coffin may stay there for a day or two, and then will likely come back down by royal train to London. But that could take time. The coffin might not even arrive until the beginning of next week. But there will be something happening every day. They've deliberately built this so that everyone can see the new king in his new role as king. Because I think that's really quite important. We've seen him all of his life, really, as the Prince of Wales. He's been the prince in waiting, right? He's the longest serving heir to the throne there's ever been, and now we have to see him in the new role, which is the monarch. And it kind of reminds me a bit of in 2002 when the Queen Mother died, and the Queen Mother was so beloved. Everyone adored her, and the Queen herself was a bit sandwiched between the Queen Mother and the young, hip, happening generation. And what happened was, all of a sudden, with the Queen Mother's passing, then of course the attention focused on the Queen. And I think this is what we're going to slowly see over the coming days and weeks.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. We'll check back in with you in a little bit. We have much more coverage ahead on the passing of the Queen. First, though, a quick weather preview. Here's Anthony Farnell.
And it is raining in London, it's raining in Scotland. We'll get to that weather forecast coming up. But here in Toronto and across much of southern Ontario, beautiful sunny skies. It's been that way throughout the entire day. It's also quite warm, 25 winds from the southeast at 19 kilometers per hour. As far as our visible satellite imagery goes, this is the view from space. There were some pop-up cumulus clouds, no rain, nothing like that, but just a few clouds. Those have since pretty much diminished to nothing, so it's clear for the night tonight. Great for viewing stars in the almost full harvest moon. That peaks this weekend, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. We're also tracking a front. There is rain for parts of Manitoba into northwestern Ontario, but this guy, this big blue H, that is our friend for the next couple of days, so we have more of the same. 25 currently in London, 26 in Muskoka and Ottawa. Same thing down in Windsor where it feels like 28. The Humidex topping 30 now in both Ottawa and Montreal, and we'll be above 30, the feel coming up here on Friday and Saturday after an overnight low of 15. So there it is. It's basically a carbon copy of what we saw today. Beautiful conditions for Friday, and then we all want this to continue through the weekend. I have that for and a look at what's going on across the pond in London coming up.
Thanks, Anthony. Coming up, our Erica Vela live on King Street as the Toronto International begins, how the Queen's death has affected the beginning of the event. That's coming.
Rebecca Romaine and Jerry O'Connell host The Real Love Boat. New series Wednesday, October 5th on Global.
No regrets. No, I will have no regrets. All the things.
Danielle?
Danielle.
Hi.
Glad we're finally doing this.
Me too. I could really use some advice.
Well, let's get to work. I will have no regrets. Meet my boyfriend, Jake.
What's up, everyone?
What is all over your feet?
They're flowers. I study botany.
Resting dad face back there likes plants too.
Grab some pruners. Let's prune.
There's Dulux. And until September 26th, buy one, get one free. Find your local paint store at dulux.ca.
The next Lotto Max jackpot is $60 million, plus an estimated 6 Max Millions. So, start dreaming, everyone.
I'd start my own baking show.
Make it your own baking empire. Lotto Max tickets today.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout their showroom. Plus, pay absolutely nothing for 2 years. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
Selling your home, large or small, don't get lost in the real estate jungle. Hi, I'm Frank Leo, and I do things a lot differently. I spend millions of dollars on cutting-edge marketing that is seen by thousands of smart buyers every single day. Radio, massive print ads, thousands of websites, even on TV. I have a full team ready to create demand for your property. And if I can't sell your home at a price and deadline we agree to, I'll buy it myself. Call me today or go to getleo.com and get your home sold. Guaranteed.
Closed captioning of this program is brought to you in part by Popeye's Ghost Pepper Wings. Get 5 Ghost Pepper Wings, regular side, medium drink, and a biscuit at Popeye's today.
Tonight is the opening of the Toronto International Film Festival. Now, normally this would be an event full of glamour and glitz and red carpets. But with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, it's a more somber, subdued event. We're joined now by Erica Vela, who's live on King Street for the opening night. Erica.
Well, Alan,
And like you said, TIFF is usually known to bring celebrities in film the brightest and best. But, you know, people are usually here flocking to catch those celebrities. But I've been speaking to people here on Festival Street today. And, you know, they say there is a different feeling in the air now that the Queen has passed. Now, TIFF released a statement about her passing not too long ago. It's from CEO Cameron Bailey, and it reads, "We extend our sincerest condolences to the family and loved ones of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on the day of her passing. As we prepare to welcome Canadians and international guests to the festival, we know that many will be deeply affected by her death. We keep her legacy in our memory." Now, we have been speaking to people again along Festival Street all day, and they say there is definitely a somber feeling in the air now that the Queen has passed.
I was really excited for the day, and then after hearing the news, I think we were kind of expecting it, but it's still harder to hear. I think it's just going to be, a little bit more quiet for everyone. We're celebrating, but it's still sad.
Now, we've also been seeing a lot of reaction from celebrities: Ozzy Osbourne, Sylvester Stallone, Victoria Beckham, Mick Jagger, Barbra Streisand, just to name a few. Elton John, who played a concert here in Toronto last night and will be doing another concert here tonight, also tweeted saying she was an inspiring presence to be around and led the country through our greatest and darkest moments with grace, decency, and genuine caring warmth. The Queen has been a huge part of my life from my childhood to this day, and I will miss her dearly. And we'll likely hear more from Sir Elton John tonight as well. Now, to honor the Queen tonight, the marquee lights at the Royal Alexandra Theatre and the Princess of Wales Theatre will be dimmed to honor Queen Elizabeth II and mark her passing today. Now, again, it is TIFF. It's the start of TIFF, and for the next 10 days, we will be seeing dozens and dozens of celebrities coming to Toronto to walk the red carpets. Now, many of these celebrities will be coming from the UK, so we will be sure to be speaking to them and obviously getting their reaction to the passing of the Queen. I'll send it back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Erica. We want to take you back to this live look outside of Buckingham Palace, obviously very late in the evening in London. When we come back here on Global News, we will take you to London for more reaction to the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and a discussion about her legacy, not only as monarch, but also as a private human being.
Airborne traffic brought to you by Horizons. Looking for diversified exposure to alternative energy? They've got ETFs for that. Horizons ETFs. ETF solutions for every investor.
Get ready for your dream car. Sick Kids Lottery has cash, cars, 10 grand prizes, and your chance to win $1 million. The early bird deadline is midnight tomorrow. With 1 in 2 odds, play for the kids or play for the prizes, just as long as you play. Order today.
Why did I choose Vileda? Because I like smart choices. I'll do the floor. Would you blow dry Scout? Pro Mist Max. I grab it, fill it, and then spray. Cleaning has never been easier. And I can reuse my mop again and again. Try it. You'll see.
Pro Mist Max by Vileda. It feels great to feel at home.
It's the family cottage, but if you asked any of us, it was really Grandpa's happy place. Every day he'd get up first, just to catch the sunrise. He was born on the East Coast, so around a bonfire, he'd play the fiddle instead of the guitar. His second love was his boat, and he named it after his first love, Grandma. And every August, we celebrated his birthday there. I think we always will.
The irresistibly charming smash hit musical Singin' in the Rain is coming to Toronto for 4 weeks only. Based on the iconic film, this all-tapping, all-splashing show is guaranteed to put a smile on your face and features the glorious MGM score, including the legendary title song. Don't miss Singin' in the Rain, making a splash at the Princess of Wales Theatre from September 23rd through October 23rd. Book at Mirvish.com.
Get the right mattress for less during the Brick Mattress Store's tent sale. Springwall Eurotop all sizes just $2.99 each. Get 50% off this Springwall Pocket Coil Twin Full or Queen, only $3.99. The Brick Mattress Store. The right mattress guaranteed.
CSIs have the scene. Gotta bring our A game today, people.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of history in the making, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and the start of a new reign for King Charles III. The day began on an ominous note with word that the Queen was under medical supervision. Her children beckoned to be with her at the family's Balmoral estate in Scotland. Speculation quickly grew over the seriousness of the Queen's condition, but within hours, Buckingham Palace ended that speculation with a statement saying the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The flags across this country are at half-mast, including at Parliament Hill. Canada will be in a period of mourning for the next few days until a commemorative service is held to mark her passing. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and former Prime Ministers Brian Mulroney and Jacques Chrétien shared their remembrances of the Queen.
As her 12th Canadian Prime Minister, I'm having trouble believing that my last sit-down with her was my last. I will so miss those chats. She was thoughtful, wise, curious, helpful, funny, and so much more.
I found that she was resolute and determined, very engaging, quite lovely, and very kind in her relationships.
She was an extremely dedicated person. She was respected everywhere. There must be millions and millions of people around the globe who are very sad at this moment. And she had a great life, and it was always a lot of dignity, and she was an extremely pleasant person in private.
The flags at Queen's Park are also at half-mast, honoring the life of Queen Elizabeth II. Our Tracy Tong live outside the Ontario Legislature. And Tracy, that's one of the many stops that Queen Elizabeth II made in the province over the years.
That's right, Alan. There are a lot of stories tying Queen Elizabeth II to Toronto and here at Queen's Park, and this is the reason why a lot of people have felt compelled to come here today to share their memories, their stories, and to pay their respects, including Ashley here, who actually just stopped by. And I see you went to the Elton John concert yesterday as well. Ashley, why did you want to come here today?
Well, I was in Toronto for the concert, and today when I was out shopping and I learned of Her Majesty's passing, I felt really sad, and I just decided to stop by, just take a tour of Queen's Park and just reflect on the inspiration that she was.
Thank you so much for that, Ashley, and I think a lot of people share your sentiments today as well. Why we are here outside of Queen's Park is because this statue behind me, which is also outside of the Legislative Assembly, obviously, this is a big statue of Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth's great-great-grandmother. Now, she was the longest reigning British monarch until Elizabeth surpassed the record in 2015. And so today, several people, as you'll see at this base of the statue, stopped by, one person even leaving flowers to pay their respects. Inside Queen's Park, there is a portrait of Queen Elizabeth on the second floor, and we are told that this portrait will be shrouded in a black veil. Over the decades, Queen Elizabeth has had special ties to this building. Now, Elizabeth's first visit to Toronto was in 1951, and back then she was Princess Elizabeth. As Queen, she made 7 visits to Toronto between 1957 and 2010. And on that final visit on July 6, 2010, she was here at Queen's Park unveiling a plaque commemorating the 150th anniversary of Queen's Park. So a lot of rich history here, the royal family gracing these grounds throughout the years, and people feel that connection. Here's more from a couple of people who stopped by today.
My heart, my soul is with the royal family. No matter what you say, they stand for dignity, they stand for history. And I lived in England for a long time, so did my best friend, her name is Carol, and it's her birthday today. And we're sitting at Fran's restaurant celebrating a birthday, and then across the screen on the TV comes Queen Elizabeth dies. We both almost fell off the floor.
I'm going to miss her. We need the royalty. We need the royalty.
Why do we need the royalty?
Because it's history. It's part of heritage. It's everything.
And for members of the public who want to come by to pay their respects, to leave messages of sympathy, condolence, and solidarity, a book of condolence will be set up in the lobby of Queen's Park, the main lobby here, starting tomorrow. Alan, back to you.
Thank you, Tracy. Let's go to London now, and Global's Krista Gamansingh for more on this historic moment. Crystal, give us a sense of what's going on there now.
Alan, there is still a deep, profound sense of sadness and mourning. You know, it is incredibly late here in London, and it is a rainy kind of evening, but out in front of Buckingham Palace, I think you have the live shot there, there are still so many people, and in fact, the crowd keeps growing. You're not really able to see right in front of the actual gates, but flowers are being placed there, and people continue to go there. It's not that there's anything happening at Buckingham Palace at this hour. It's just such a iconic position for the Queen, her home in London, her official residence of work, and so that's where people are just streaming down to really just be with one another and share stories about the Queen and their experiences, and just to support one another and be together. Even during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, one of the things that people talked about was needing to be together, and that is the overwhelming sense. It is worth noting, Alan, that tomorrow we expect, based on Reuters reports, that King Charles III will make his first address. Alan?
Thank you, Crystal. Now, here in this city, Queen Elizabeth II's death has been hitting close to home for many people. Our Karen Lieberman joins us now from the Queen and Beaver pub. Karen.
Alan, most Canadians have only ever known Queen Elizabeth II as their head of state, and there's a lot of respect for the Queen here in Canada. In Toronto specifically, we managed to find a few who've had the privilege of meeting with her in person.
The Queen is the Queen of Canada, and I think if you ask a child to draw a picture of a queen, they draw a picture of her.
Throughout her reign, Queen Elizabeth II visited this country 22 times, more than any other Commonwealth country.
She's been to every province, every territory, multiple times, and she's genuinely fond of this country.
On this visit in October 2002, little Gillian Cook had an opportunity to meet the Queen, though she didn't appear jubilant in the moment.
But I do remember that I was allowed to go up and give her flowers. I was wearing a little kilt.
Her father also met the Queen in Canada when he was a child, so he felt compelled to carry on the tradition despite her reaction.
She just smiled and nodded, and I apologized for my daughter's outburst. And she was very gracious, and she took the flowers.
Ontario's former Lieutenant Governor David Onley describes the Queen, whom he met on 4 occasions.
And she is so very, very astute and engaged with, you don't feel like there's a single other thing on her mind other than, the experience that she's sharing with you. Of course, being the head of state in Great Britain, I'm sure there were multiple things on her mind when my wife Ruth Ann and I met her in 2008.
This English pub in downtown Toronto is named in honor of Queen Elizabeth II.
You know, I think the Queen is just such an iconic figure, probably the most well-known woman in the world. I think she's an unbelievable human being. She's done more for public service than probably anybody that's ever lived.
And this is the most fabulous of all. This is from their wedding photographs.
And this vintage shop in Leslieville has some of the most unique memorabilia for the many royal collectors.
Whether or not it's very small pieces of ephemera, what's ephemera, something that shouldn't exist anymore, such as the placemats to commemorate her coronation, you know, or a postcard that somebody sent.
Longtime royal watcher Patricia Treble says, as the Queen herself pointed out, she was not a fair weather friend to Canadians.
She's come in bad times, constitutional crises. She's come when times are good. 1976 Olympics. She's simply always been there.
And that is precisely how she's being remembered tonight, as the Queen who graced this country with her presence many times over many decades, Alan.
Thank you so much, Karen. And as we take another live look outside of Buckingham Palace, what will the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II be? That's coming up on continuing coverage here on Global News.
Airborne traffic brought to you by Horizons. Looking for diversified exposure to alternative energy? They've got ETFs for that. Horizons ETFs. ETF solutions for every investor.
What'd you do? I'm here because I robbed a man at gunpoint. He got up in my pro hearing saying he forgave me and he hoped I could turn my life around.
Dude needs to leave town? It's usually over a girl.
Long story.
I wanted to see you tonight before I go to work. I love you.
Fire has gotten into Miller Canyon.
This thing getting ripped right into town. We'll make our stand. Right here. Water drop! God, I love this job. Let's go, let's go!
Fire Country. New drama Friday, October 7th on Global.
Be the first to experience Ignite Internet with Wi-Fi 6E, the world's most powerful Wi-Fi technology with more bandwidth and the fastest Wi-Fi speeds. Backed by our Ignite Wi-Fi satisfaction guarantee. Only with Rogers.
The next Lotto Max jackpot is $60 million, plus an estimated 6 Max Millions. So, start dreaming, everyone.
I'd start my own baking show.
Make it your own baking empire. Get your Lotto Max tickets today.
The irresistibly charming smash hit musical Singin' in the Rain is coming to Toronto for 4 weeks only. Based on the iconic film, this all-tapping, all-splashing show is guaranteed to put a smile on your face and features the glorious MGM score, including the legendary title song. Don't miss Singin' in the Rain, making a splash at the Princess of Wales Theatre from September 23rd through October 23rd. Book at Mirvish.com.
Hey, kiddo.
Mom?
Easy peasy.
Whoa.
Snack their attention with Giuseppe Easy Peasy by Dr. Edgar.
Here at Nissan, we have excitement down to a science. We call it Thrillology, the study of what moves you in here to help you move out there.
Right now, finance select 2022 Nissan models from 2.99% for 24 months. Limited quantities.
$3.99, limited time. Tim Hortons on Deep Buy.
$3.99. Beautiful.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout the showroom. Plus, win amazing prizes, including our grand prize $10,000 shopping spree at Leon's. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
Your mama didn't become an icon by playing nice. Neither will you.
Welcome back. 70 years on the throne, 12 different Canadian prime ministers, 22 official visits to this country. But the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II will be more than just numbers. We're joined again by our royal expert, Patricia Treble. Obviously, it's early days, but do you have a sense of what her legacy will be?
I think it's going to be two things. It's going to be continuity and modernization. And they sound like they don't mesh, but they do. And continuity is simple. The job of monarch is to keep the throne, and to keep the throne going so that it's passed on even stronger than it is. King Farouk of Egypt famously said that there'll be 5 royal houses at the end of the last century. Spades, hearts, clubs, diamonds, and Windsor. He was a little wrong, but not by much. And I think the continuity is what the Queen will be remembered for, that she took a monarchy that was coming out of the bad years of the war. Remember, Britain had won the war, but it had bankrupted itself. The empire was going, everything was changing. And she looked at that and she saw not a chance to look backward, but to look forward. And so what came out of there is modernization. Empire gone, Commonwealth. Anyone who wanted to become a republic, absolutely. She was like the first person who would go there to celebrate with them. That was never an issue for her. And she also helped modernize the monarchy, and she did it very incrementally so that, I mean, for anyone who's ever watched The Crown on Netflix, if you look at the very first season and you look at the season that's about to hit, completely different monarchies. So she did things like get rid of the old ways from before the war, the debutantes who had to be presented to court. That was gone. She opened up the garden parties to everyone. And she made a point of saying if you were contributing to your local community, you were going to get to go to a garden party. I mean, they became bigger and more elaborate around Britain. And when she came to Canada, she did the same sort of thing. She got rid of kind of the formality of the monarchy. So you didn't have to curtsy. You didn't have to bow. If you didn't want to, no problem. It didn't bother her. Just don't crush her hand when you shake her hand, because she shakes so many hands. But what she also did is she modernized the monarchy. So you brought in all the social media. You brought in professionals to run it. So it wasn't just courtiers who were, the sons of this and the daughters of that. They were professional people who knew exactly what they were doing. And that's what you see now.
Patricia, appreciate your thank you so much. Stay with us. More coverage straight ahead here on Global.
Closed captioning of this program is brought to you in part by Popeye's Ghost Pepper Wings. Get 5 Ghost Pepper Wings, regular side, medium drink, and a biscuit at Popeye's today.
20 years ago, a little friend of ours got a lot of attention from Canadians. The idea of a tiny hippo that could actually be living in our homes got us talking about how easy it is to be fooled by what we see. Today, the internet is full of things that look just as real. In our digital world, we need to think smarter and double-check before we believe anything we see. Find out how at breakthefake.ca.
I have an idea. Afternoon activity.
Ooh, puzzle.
I love seeing the big picture.
Big picture, huh? Here's an idea. With RBC, we see the big picture of the value we get with our bank account.
Oh, I love value.
Yeah, like the money we've saved on monthly fees, Net Petro-Canada, and all the rewards points we've earned.
So many pieces.
And one big picture.
We gotta get out more.
Yeah.
Get powerful benefits every day with RBC Vantage.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout the showroom. Plus, win amazing prizes, including our grand prize $10,000 shopping spree. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
So, Ryan, how are your parents?
Great, thanks. Actually, I just moved them into a retirement community. I could put you in touch.
Let me consult my wife. I like him. But we're not moving.
Yeah. Oh, I see why you like this guy.
Retire in the home you love with a chip reverse mortgage from a home equity bank.
The WeatherTech Cup phone is the safe way to secure your phone while driving. The desk phone is perfect for the home or office. The Cup phone fits virtually any size cup holder. Nice! And offers an extender arm for easier viewing. The desk phone has a sturdy non-slip base with a 2-view option. So if you have a phone, WeatherTech has you covered. Has anybody ever told you you're a handsome devil? Yes! Order your desk phone or cup phone today at weathertech.ca.
On FanDuel Casino, playing your favorite casino games is safe, simple, and fun. With hundreds of slots and table games, finding your favorites is easy. And withdrawing your money is fast and secure. Join FanDuel Casino, now live in Ontario.
Be the first to experience Ignite Internet with Wi-Fi 6E, the world's most powerful Wi-Fi technology with more bandwidth and the fastest Wi-Fi speeds. Backed by our Ignite Wi-Fi satisfaction guarantee. Only with Rogers.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout the showroom. Plus, win amazing prizes, including our grand prize $10,000 shopping spree at Leon's. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
You don't think this is all a bit ridiculous?
The Good Fight final season premieres tonight at 9, exclusively on W.
Welcome back. Toronto's Royal York Hotel has been a favorite of the Queen and royal family during their visits to this city. And many at the heart of downtown Toronto are reflecting on what the Queen meant to them. And that is where we find our Shalima Maharaj, who joins us live. Shalima?
Good evening, Alan. We are inside on the mezzanine floor here of the Fairmont Royal York. And on this floor, you can literally take a stroll down memory lane. History is documented on these walls. This was from the last stay that Queen Elizabeth II had here at the hotel in 2010. But she has stayed here on multiple occasions, as have members of her family and plenty of other people as well of note. Now, we did get a chance to speak to some of the people outside, whether it was people from out of town or locals, about the significance of the Queen and what she meant to them. And for a lot of them, they really said that she amounted to the glue that held her family together, that she was a hard worker, and she was ever present during those pivotal moments in history.
It's very sad. I think that she's done a great job for the monarchy. She's had a very tough life from what we have been told and what we've seen, and so we wish her family condolences and support through this tough time.
Well, it's sad, but you know, she had a full a life with many challenge, many she did nice things too.
Oh, just a sense of duty, I suppose, would be the main thing. That's what it would be, sense of duty. Yeah, all the way throughout, like she's seen so many things during her tenure on the phones.
I thought she was a very graceful woman. A lot of the things she did, the British people loved her a lot. You know, she's been around for so long, she's like a fixture. So I think they're all going to go through a bit of change, because not having the Queen is going to be very different.
Now, down there in the lobby, it's incredibly busy right now, but we can tell you that as of tomorrow, it is expected there will be a book of condolences available for members of the public to come in and sign. That book will then be sent to the royal family. So again, we will keep you posted on exactly when you can begin coming in here to be able to write down your messages of condolence. But that is something that is currently in the works here at the Fairmont Royal York. But for now, I'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, thank you so much, Shalima. Appreciate that. Anthony Farnell standing by with more on what the weather news is, especially in London, as so many people are gathering.
Yeah, they're gathering today, and now it's well ahead, so it's approaching midnight there, and they're also going to be around for the next few days. So is this area of low pressure, and it doesn't just include most of Great Britain, but all the way up towards Belmont, towards most of Scotland. Heavier rain up across the north, and this is actually great news for them. And it's been such a hot and dry summer, and now finally the skies have opened up just in time for the flag to lower today. There was just an incredible rainbow. I don't know if you saw pictures of that right over Buckingham Palace. Tomorrow we may see more rainbows, also the risk of thunderstorms, and this is for London. So very similar temperatures there at this time of year compared to here in Toronto. A nice weekend ahead, and then we get some more rain, which is typical in September. Mostly showers. That'll be through next week, and we'll keep you updated on this forecast, with a lot of people definitely heading that way, or at least just not celebrating life. As far as us, we have other things to celebrate. 24 degrees, just beautiful sunny skies there on the Inner Harbor off towards Toronto Island, and it is going to continue tomorrow. 24 to 26. I think we're going to actually be closer to 26. Same thing on Saturday, and then we do get some showers for Sunday. After that, an unsettled pattern right through next week. Showers and the risk of storms. We too need the rain, and it's coming, but not until the second half of the weekend. That's a look at your forecast.
Thanks, Anthony. When we come back, one more look at the remarkable life of Queen Elizabeth II.
The dog walking forecast is brought to you by the Bone & Biscuit. Visit in person or online at boneandbiscuit.ca today. Rebecca Romaine and Jerry O'Connell host The Real Love Boat. New series Wednesday, October 5th on Global.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout the showroom. Plus, win amazing prizes, including our grand prize $10,000 shopping spree at Leon's. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
At Kubota, we're all about getting it done. And on the farm, the list is long. Take your productivity to the next level with Kubota Farm Solutions. Our tractors, range of implements, and programs deliver business-matched solutions from cash crop to dairy and beyond. Our local dealers, reliable equipment, and service that's there when you need it give you the power to get it done, and then some. Because on the farm, your work never stops. Neither does Kubota.
The scrape of the blades, the crack of the slap shot, crowds cheering as the buzzer goes off, the ref's whistle, coaches yelling, players chirping. Many people over 40 have some degree of hearing loss, but don't seek help right away.
Some wait as long as 7 years, go without help, or don't see the value of a hearing test. And left untreated, hearing loss can lead to depression, cognitive decline, and increased social isolation. The longer hearing loss remains undiagnosed, the longer it can take for the benefits of better hearing to be realized.
Don't miss the sounds that you love. Take care of your hearing. Book a consultation with your local hearing care professional today.
This message is brought to you by Connect Hearing.
Our pets are happiest when being themselves. A diet of real food will help keep them that way. Get started with your neighborhood pet nutrition experts. Real pets, real food, real healthy. The Bone & Biscuit. Sniff out a store near you at boneandbiscuit.ca.
Get ready for your dream car. Sick Kids Lottery has cash, cars, 10 grand prizes, and your chance to win $1 million. The early bird deadline is midnight tomorrow. With 1 in 2 odds, play for the kids or play for the prizes. Just as long as you play. Order today.
Welcome to Allstate, where you can bundle home and auto insurance. Right, Frank?
I saved a ton of money.
And now you're relaxing.
We're working from home.
Bundle home and auto and save with Allstate. Click or call for a quote today.
Closed captioning of this program is brought to you in part by Popeye's Ghost Pepper Wings. Get 5 Ghost Pepper Wings, regular side, medium drink, and a biscuit at Popeye's today.
Queen Elizabeth II is credited for creating the modern monarchy. She remained popular for nearly all of her long reign. We leave you with this look back at her life and the events that shaped her time on the throne.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
The modern Elizabethan era is over. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in history, has died. And as the news spread today, this rainbow appeared over Buckingham Palace. People are gathered there. Britain is now in a period of national mourning.
Queen Elizabeth II was the rock on which modern Britain was built. Our country has grown and flourished under her reign. Britain is the great country it is today because of her.
And millions across the world share the sadness and are sharing their memories of her.
As her 12th Canadian Prime Minister, I'm having trouble believing that my last sit-down with her was my last. I will so miss those chats. She was thoughtful, wise, curious, helpful, funny, and so much more.
The American President Joe Biden offered his condolences, saying the Queen led always with grace, an unwavering commitment to duty, and the incomparable power of her example. All of her children and her grandson, Prince William, flew to Scotland to be by her side before the palace announced the 96-year-old died peacefully this afternoon at Balmoral Castle, her beloved Scottish home. The crown has now passed to her son, who will be known as King Charles III. In a statement, he called it a moment of the greatest sadness for me and all members of my family. Good evening and thanks for joining us. We all knew she was in the final chapter of her reign. She'd been queen for 7 decades and she'd worked right up until the very end, meeting the UK's new Prime Minister just this past Tuesday. She was always there, and now she is no longer. Tonight, the world is mourning the passing of Her Majesty. Our coverage begins with our Europe Bureau Chief, Crystal Gamansing in London. Crystal.
Donna, yeah, the world really is mourning, and no more sign of that is around the palaces. In London at Buckingham Palace, you saw some pictures a little bit earlier. There's just rows and rows of people, flowers. You know, it's incredibly late here in London, but it is still very, very busy. People just want to come together. They want to be around one another, share stories, and have this sense of community, because truly their sense of community has been rocked. This has been, for most taken away. Now, it's not a matter of shock. She was 96, so people knew that this was going to happen, but it is still profoundly sad, and people are trying to come to grips with it. We did hear from the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who just this week was, hand in hand with the Queen as she was asked to form a new government. Here's what she had to say.
Through thick and thin, Queen Elizabeth II provided us with the stability and the strength that we needed. She was the very spirit of Great Britain, and that spirit will endure. She has been our longest ever reigning monarch. It's an extraordinary achievement to have presided with such dignity and grace for 70 years. Her life of service stretched beyond most of our living memories. In return, she was loved and admired by the people in the United Kingdom and all around the world. She has been a personal inspiration to me and to many Britons. Her devotion to duty is an example to us all.
Crystal, Queen Elizabeth took over from her father, George V, and now her son is taking over from her. I guess we have to get used to saying King Charles now. What has the new king said about his mother's death?
Yeah, King Charles, it's definitely different to say, and we're hearing a lot of people now saying, God save the Queen. We expect, based on Reuters reports, that we will hear from King Charles tomorrow, but he did release a statement today, sort of trying to calm the nation and share some thoughts, saying, we mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, and the Commonwealth. He goes on to say, during during this period of mourning and change, my family and I will be comforted and sustained by our knowledge of the respect and deep affection in which the Queen was so widely held. We can also report that at least one of King Charles's titles has been now handed to Prince William. He will also be known as the Duke of Cornwall, in addition to being called the Duke of Cambridge. Donna?
All right, Crystal Gamansing in London, thank you. All across Canada, flags on government buildings, including the Peace Tower in Ottawa, have been lowered to half-mast. She was, of course, the Queen of Canada, too. She met so many Canadian prime ministers, so many ordinary Canadians as well on her many trips here. David Akin has been following the Prime Minister, who is in Vancouver. David.
Yeah, that's true, Donna. She had a special relationship with many people, places across the country. I'm in one. I'm standing in Christ Church Cathedral in downtown Vancouver. It's right across the street from the hotel where Justin Trudeau and his cabinet have been meeting for the last 3 days. This is an Anglican church, and it is a church where Elizabeth herself prayed in 1951. She was Princess Elizabeth when she visited then, and in fact, her son, the King, King Charles, he prayed here as well when he visited in 1986. So this cathedral, when the news was announced that the Queen had passed, the doors were open. There's been a book of condolences here that many people have signed, and the church bell tolled 96 times in honor of the memory of Queen Elizabeth. Now, as for the PM and his cabinet, they did conclude their business, their retreat, but by and large, the business of government has been paused as the PM reflected on a Queen that he first met for the first time in 1977 as a boy at the side of his dad, Pierre Trudeau.
She was our Queen for almost half of Canada's existence. And she had an obvious, deep, and abiding love and affection for Canadians. She served us all with strength and wisdom for 70 years as we grew into the diverse, optimistic, responsible, ambitious, and extraordinary country we are today. In a complicated world, her steady grace and resolve brought comfort and strength to us all. Canada is in mourning. She was one of my favorite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
You know, Donna, Canada has only ever had 23 prime ministers in our entire existence, and more than half of them, 12, including Justin Trudeau, called Elizabeth their queen. Donna?
She has just been around for so long. David Akin in Vancouver, thank you. Well, Canada's 20th Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, had a very special relationship with the Queen that spanned more than 50 years and continued long after he left office. The Right Honourable Jean Chrétien joins me now from Toronto. Mr. Chrétien, you knew the Queen better than most of us. How are you feeling tonight?
Oh, it's a very sad day, but it was expected because she was 96 years old, but I met her in 1967 the first time when she came for the Centennial of Canada, and I had occasion to accompany her in some ceremony, and kept meeting her as minister and as prime minister over the years. I traveled many days in the north for the centennial of the Northwest Territories in 1970 with Prince Philip, Prince Charles, and Princess Anne with her, and I have a lot of memories. I met her in Canada many times. I met her in many places in Great Britain. I met her in different Commonwealth countries at Commonwealth meeting. So it's 55 years, well, at least that I know her, and it's a big, big loss for everybody. Millions of people around the globe are very sad at this moment.
You know, so many people have talked about her sense of humor. I'm sure you saw flashes of that over the years.
Oh, but you know, it is well known, for example, that when I signed the Constitution after Trudeau, when I took the pen, the tip of the pen was broken, and when I tried to sign on this very important document, I could not. Pen had been broken. So I said something, and the Queen looked at the left, looked at the right, and burst in a big laugh. And I refused to say to the press what I had said, but eventually I would say that's a state secret, but in fact I had said merde. And she had understood that word because she was perfectly bilingual, and you know, she laughed. And another occasion that was funny, she was one journalist in Quebec had managed to call her pretending that he was Jean Chrétien. And it was a crazy interview, and she was polite. The guy used terrible words, you know, and she kept the dignity that is a characteristic of her personality. But when I met her a few days later in New Zealand, and I said, Your Majesty, I apologize for the incident in Quebec when we are confronted with a very unusual situation. And she said, oh yes, I found that you were not as usual, and I thought you were drunk, she said to me. And just to show how colorful and understanding she was, but she had been trapped by somebody who was quite smart to manage to cheat the Buckingham Palace staff to pretend that she was talking with her Prime Minister of Canada.
Well, thank you for sharing those memories. I'm sure you have.
She was very knowledgeable and very, you know, it was always, she was very interested in what was going on in Canada. Yeah. You know, as I lived some difficult time on national unity, it was a subject that many times I discussed with her, and she was offering her support for a strong, united Canada all the time.
Well, former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, thank you so much for sharing your memories and your time with us. Queen Elizabeth was 96 years old. She was queen for 70 years, working right up, as I said, to the very end, seeing in the UK's new Prime Minister on Tuesday. An entire generation has known no other Queen of England. It's impossible to condense her long life into just a few minutes. Jeff Semple has this look at some pivotal moments.
In an ever-changing world, she was a rock of stability. Queen Elizabeth II famously said she had to be seen to be believed. And over 7 decades, with each passing milestone, thousands turned out to see Britain's oldest, longest reigning, and most beloved monarch.
She's probably the most famous woman in the world, probably the most admired woman in the world.
Her reign was as long as it was unexpected. Born Elizabeth Alexandra Mary on April 21st, 1926, she was still a child when her uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated the throne. Suddenly, Elizabeth's father was king, and she was next in line. The young princess made this promise.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
That devotion to duty would be her hallmark. She was a teenager when Europe went to war and begged her father to let her help, first with her wartime radio broadcasts.
Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister, Margaret Rose, and I feel so much for you.
And later, joining the services as a driver and mechanic. During the war, she had a chance encounter with her distant cousin, Philip. He was serving with the British Royal Navy in the Mediterranean and Pacific. They exchanged letters for 7 years.
As onto the famous balcony came the bride and bridegroom.
Their wedding in Westminster Abbey in 1947 was broadcast on BBC Radio to 200 million people around the world. The newlyweds never expected Princess Elizabeth was about to become queen. But when Elizabeth's father died from a heart attack, the 25-year-old was thrust onto the throne. Her coronation was one of the first televised public events. The young queen quickly showed a knack for protecting tradition while embracing change.
I very much hope that this new medium will make my Christmas message more personal and direct.
But the rise of technology also meant the world was shrinking, and so too was her empire. More than 25 countries declared independence during her reign. Others loosened their ties, like Canada, signing its constitution in 1982. Her reign spanned 12 Canadian prime ministers, from Pierre Trudeau's famous pirouette to Canada's second Prime Minister Trudeau.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
Her Majesty made 22 trips to Canada, more than any other country.
This country felt like a home, away from home.
Many credit the Queen's personal popularity for the monarchy's survival, but at times she struggled to hold the family together. 3 of her children divorced. And after the death of Princess Diana in 1997, the Queen faced criticism for failing to join the public outpouring of grief. In February 2020, Diana's youngest son, Prince Harry, and his wife Meghan retired from royal duties, dealing a blow to the palace. And a couple of months later, the royal family lost another member. Prince Philip died peacefully at Windsor Castle at the age of 99. At his funeral, a scaled-down affair in the COVID-19 pandemic, the Queen sat alone in the pew, a widow after 73 years of marriage. But within days of her husband's death, Her Majesty was back to work, holding virtual royal audiences due to the pandemic, and as always, keeping calm and carrying on. One of the last times the family appeared all together was to mark her Platinum Jubilee, celebrating 70 years on the throne. The 96-year-old was forced to miss some of the party due to health issues. And despite scandals surrounding some of her children, grandchildren, even the British Prime Minister, the Queen, as ever, seemed to rise above, making a surprise appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. There by her side, 3 generations of future kings, all heirs to the British throne. Her legacy will endure, but for a woman who steered the royal family through 3/4 of a century, it's hard to imagine this place without her. Jeff Semple, Global News, London.
In June, the Queen celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking her 70 years on the throne. We're back with more on her death and her legacy in a moment.
Welcome to Allstate, where you can bundle home and auto insurance. Right, Frank?
I saved a ton of money.
And now you're relaxing.
We're working from home.
Bundle home and auto and save with Allstate. Click or call for a quote today.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout their showroom. Plus, pay absolutely nothing for 2 years. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
It's time for a new kind of diamond. One that's made, not mined, and is as unique as you and me. Diamonds by Pandora. Exquisitely beautiful, lab-created diamonds.
Want a new way to treat pain? Try new Salonpas cream. Salonpas numbs pain away with 2 clinically studied anesthetics that begin to work on contact with targeted relief and no scent. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
No regrets. No, I will have no regrets. All the things.
Danielle?
Danielle.
Hi.
Glad we're finally doing this.
Me too. I could really use some advice.
Well, let's get to work. I will have no regrets.
At Toyota, our vehicles have always had quality built right in.
Exhaust store gazillion times.
Because sometimes we all need a little help.
Because I might forget to check my blind spot.
Because this is our home away from home.
Quality means everything to us because it means everything to you. Find the Toyota that's right for you. Order yours today or visit shoptoyota.ca.
CSIs have the scene. Gotta bring our A game today, people.
The Queen traveled to more than 100 countries, and the place she visited the most was Canada. She did 22 royal tours here, covered vast territory in this country, and met all kinds of people. Eric Sorensen joins me from Toronto. Eric, the Queen made so many connections here. Tell us more about those.
Well, Donna, the Queen's reign spanned 12 of the 23 prime ministers in the history of this country, so more than half since the beginning of Confederation. So it's quite a record that she had with almost half of the more than half of the prime ministers in the country. The first, of course, was Louis Saint Laurent, starting in 1952. He met with the Queen in a formal picture. That's him directly to her left, and there's Winston Churchill right on her right. So it shows you how far back this goes. John Diefenbaker was next. He loved the traditional symbols of British rule in Canada, so much so that he wanted to retain the red ensign with the emblem of the Union Jack as our flag. It was Lester Pearson, of course, who brought in the new red maple leaf flag, and he welcomed the Queen for Canada's 100th birthday at Expo 67. Canadians celebrated being a nation unto themselves long before, of course, there was proper recognition of Indigenous people in this country. Pierre Trudeau met the Queen with young children, including Justin, in the 1970s. And with the Queen, Trudeau signed the Constitution Act in 1982, establishing rights and freedoms that continue to define our values and who we are. Joe Clark wasn't in office long enough to meet the Queen, but he was an opposition leader when he met her, in this picture here. John Turner was only in office briefly. His connection was to Princess Margaret. They were an item, and it was thought they might marry way back in around 1960. Brian Mulroney had a unique relationship. He was a leading force to sanction South Africa to end apartheid. He did not have the full support of UK Prime Minister Thatcher or US President Reagan, though they opposed apartheid, but he had the strong and quiet support of the Queen. Mulroney credits Queen Elizabeth for helping to free South Africa and Nelson Mandela. Kim Campbell did not have a royal visit while in office. That was a quick turnover of 3 prime ministers in that one year, 1993. Jean Chrétien and the Queen got on well, as he was telling you earlier, Donna, that wonderful anecdote with the Quebec prankster, and the Queen ultimately telling him she thought it was him on the phone and thought he was drunk, and they laughed about that. Paul Martin met with the Queen in 2005. Of course, his father, Paul Martin Sr., also met with the Queen way back when he was External Affairs Minister. Prime Minister Harper met with the Queen both at Buckingham Palace and in Canada. One thing they shared was a love of the Canadian North. Both made more than one trip to the Arctic. And Justin Trudeau said the Queen was one of his favorite people. We heard him earlier. A sincere sentiment, as he has known her almost all of his life. And here you see the picture. The Queen is wearing a dress with blue and yellow, and the flowers behind her are blue and yellow. And that seemed to be a clear signal just after the war in Ukraine had begun that she was wearing and showing the colors of that country. And the Queen, of course, never betrayed a political position, but maybe just that once she did there. So the Queen met most of the 12 prime ministers who served under her in Canada, Donna, and she really had a warm relationship with all of them and with Canadians.
You know, I heard, Eric, from one royal watcher that Jean Chrétien was her favorite Canadian prime minister. I have no idea if that's true, but apparently because of his sense of humor, and she loved to laugh. Eric in Toronto, thanks so much. She was the matriarch of the UK and in many ways to the whole world. No other person on the world stage alive today can come close to matching her longevity and the vast number of historic events she's witnessed. Warm tributes are pouring in from leaders across the political spectrum. Abigail Beeman is with me from Ottawa with a look at some of that. Abigail.
Well, Donna, we're hearing from Canadian leaders who had a front seat to both pivotal and private moments with the Queen, beginning with former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, in office just 4 days before he hosted her on a visit to Canada.
She was resolute and determined, very engaging, quite lovely, and very kind. She was a towering figure in history.
A decade later, Paul Martin became the 10th of 12 prime ministers during the Queen's reign and remembers her unmistakable affection for Canada, as well as her touching ability to build relationships, noting at their first meeting, she mentioned her friendship with Martin's parents who lived in London, while Mr. Martin Sr. served as High Commissioner in the 1960s. Governor General Mary Simon touched on a few important themes in her message, noting the Queen's belief in service to her people above all and dedication to the Crown, as well as the fact she's the only Queen most people ever knew. Simon remembers how growing up her grandmother revered the Queen, as did many in the Arctic. While complicated, the Queen long worked to foster relations with Canada's Indigenous communities. While most condolence messages have focused solely on the Queen, Alberta and Ontario's premiers also made mention of the new King.
While I express my sincere condolences to the King Charles III, I also congratulate His Majesty on his accession to the throne. Long live the King.
Tributes continue to pour in from so many with both historic and personal connections, remembering the Queen's affection for Canada, humility, wisdom, and sense of humor. Donna?
All right, Abigail Beeman in Ottawa, thank you. We're back with more on the death of the Queen in a moment.
Good morning.
Girl, I'm about to have a panic attack.
Got him. This is really happening.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, baby.
God, I love this job.
Let me know.
Mom, I know who's the murderer. Welcome aboard the Real Love Boat.
No regrets. No, I will have no regrets. All the things.
Danielle?
Danielle.
Hi.
Glad we're finally doing this.
Me too. I could really use some advice.
Well, let's get to work.
I will have no regrets.
At Toyota, our vehicles have always had quality built right in.
We've asked land-based store gazillion times.
Because sometimes we all need a little help.
Because I might forget to check my blind spot.
Because this is our home away from home.
Quality means everything to us because it means everything to you. Find the Toyota that's right for you. Order yours today or visit shoptoyota.ca.
Want a new way to treat pain? Try new Salonpas cream. Salonpas numbs pain away with 2 clinically studied anesthetics that begin to work on contact with targeted relief and no scent. Salonpas, it's good medicine.
At Walmart, fall means you can expect one thing: rollbacks. A lot of them. Get back to your routine without blowing your budget. Not just here, but across the store. So you can get back into the swing of things for less.
It's Leon's Customer Appreciation Event, our biggest sale of the year. Get amazing specials throughout their showroom. Plus, pay absolutely nothing for 2 years. This weekend only. Visit leons.ca for details.
The next Lotto Max jackpot is $60 million, plus an estimated 6 Max Millions. So, start dreaming, everyone.
I'd start my own baking show.
Make it your own baking empire. Get your Lotto Max tickets today.
You don't belong here. Fire Country. New drama Friday, October 7th on Global.
Your mama didn't become an icon by playing nice. Neither will you.
Well, you're looking at Buckingham Palace. It's just before midnight in London right now. People still milling about, I guess taking in the news of the death of the Queen, being there just to get a sense of the mood. Our Europe Bureau Chief, Crystal Gamansing, is in London. Crystal, this is the beginning of 10 days of mourning and then, of course, a state funeral. What can we expect?
Yeah, well, we understand that we will hear from King Charles tomorrow, and then on Saturday, it's understood that her remains will be moving back to London and Buckingham Palace. That should be happening via train. And then the next day that we should take note would be Wednesday the 14th, where she will lie in state for 3 days. Donna?
All right. Crystal Gamansing in London, thanks. And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. We leave you tonight with more moments from Britain as the country and the rest of the world mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. She endured for 70 years, was there at times of great crisis and great celebration, and it's unlikely the monarchy will be the same without her. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
It's Canadian country music's Night to Shine, hosted by Tennille Townes and Blanco Brown. The CCMA Awards, Sunday at 8 Eastern on Global.
So what exactly are you doing here?
We're